The year was 2004, an absurdly stacked year for gaming, overflowing with the release of now legendary titles, blasting their way to the top of the charts. With such hot competition, making an impact would be a challenge, and with none feeling it more than developers Troika Games, that during a turbulent development were given a hard deadline by publishers Activision for the release of their upcoming vampire RPG, with this leading to the game being released incomplete in November of 2004, causing chaos right out of the gate. Selling poorly and riddled with bugs and glitches, and considering some of the other titles we've seen on this channel, you would have thought all would have been lost, but today the game is considered one of the most beloved RPGs of all time, amassing a cult following considering it a masterpiece of the genre.
Everyone always wants to know who is that girl.
But how does a game go from literally unfinished to god-tier status? Especially back in 2004, where developers couldn't simply deploy an army of online patches and fixes to smooth over the cracks. What is it about this game that, despite all of its failures, made it simply unstoppable? Well, today we find out, diving into its blood-soaked world, uncovering its still remaining oddities, meeting its inhabitants,
A cross? Pfft, shove it right up their ass.
and revealing what makes up an RPG that, despite everything, is just too good to fail. This is Vampire the Masquerade – Bloodlines. Our journey begins at the character creator, where we are given a choice of which vampiric clan our fledgling vampire will originate from, as well as a number of options for their history, with this impacting their stats. It's here we get to meet the hero of our journey, Greg, a Malkavian who, aside from looking like nature's way of saying do not touch, is unfortunately afflicted with some issues, with the game opting to display this with the highly medical term, completely batshit. And as we finalize this choice, looking back had no idea of just how insane things were about to get.
You're in for it now.
We first join Greg getting hot and sweaty with a lady in his apartment/crack den, with this lady friend getting pretty freaky indeed.
I want to show you something.
And by the way, no, it's not a strap-on. Waking up in a daze, Greg, feeling strange, peers over at his lover, just before two shady characters burst in, doing their best impression of British police after someone posted something naughty on Twitter. Now with him and his lady friend in binds, Greg finds himself in the presence of one Sebastian LaCroix, presenting the pair in front of an audience of vampires and a creature from the Black Latrine. LaCroix reveals that Greg's lover is charged with turning him into a vampire without the permission required by their kind, a crime punishable by death.
Forgive me. Let the penalty commence.
After some protesting by a man in the audience,
This is bullshit!
LaCroix decides to spare dear Greg, informing everyone of his plan to let Greg go, to give him a chance to learn the vampire ways. All while his henchman peers over his shoulder, sporting a face like his wife just activated the love egg. Speaking to Greg following the execution, LaCroix reminds us of the strict code of conduct among vampire kind, and informs us of what we must do next.
Allowing you to live makes me directly responsible for your subsequent behavior. So, what I'm offering is not generosity, but the opportunity to transcend the fate woven by your sire. This is your trial. You will be brought to Santa Monica. There you will meet an agent by the name of Mercurio. He will provide the details of your labor. I've shown you great clemency. Prove it was more than a wasted gesture, fledgling. Don't come back until you do. Good evening.
Finally being released, Greg finds himself on the street, where the gravity of his particular vampiric transformation begins to reveal itself.
They're coming.
After only turning the corner, we are stopped once again.
What a scene, man! Hoo-wee! Then they just plop you out here like a naked baby in the woods. How about that?
Meeting Jack, offering to show us the ropes of our new form, to which Greg agrees with quite the reply, responding with,
The Reign of Ages plots again to wash away Revelation.
Oh, man. And you're a goddamn Malkavian, too. Wow. You really are fucked.
Jack takes us aside and talks Greg into seeking out his first drink of blood, finding and approaching his first victim in a way that will become a bit of a habit of his, looking about as incognito as a guy in arseless chaps at a PTA meeting. Regardless, Greg chows down on the bloke on his smoke break, getting his first taste of blood in the process. Returning to Jack, he explains that being a vampire, or kindred as they call it, comes with some perks in the way of powers, along with being far harder to kill than humans.
You can still be destroyed, but forget the books and the movies. Garlic, it's worthless. A cross? Pfft, shove it right up their ass. Running water? That's no problem. I bathe. Occasionally.
Jack's tutoring is interrupted by gunfire ringing out, with him setting off to see what the ruckus is, leaving Greg with only the voices in his head.
Eloise said you. Cranberry sauce.
Catching up with Jack, we get a look at another of the much more violent vampire clans, the Sabbat, marauding outside, before being crushed by LaCroix's right-hand man we saw earlier. With the scene just getting more chaotic, Jack tasks Greg with breaking into a nearby office to get out the back, with Greg agreeing, stating,
I shall invade this orifice.
a mantra for gynecology if I ever heard one. Breaking into the office, the pair are still held up by a group of the Sabbat, taking aim at Greg, with him being lucky this time, saved by Jack, putting on quite the show. Taking a few bullets, Greg once again needs to regenerate, so seeks out victim number 2, in the form of a homeless man wandering about nearby.
You stupid tit.
Jack lets us know that in addition to humans, Greg can also use the odd rodent to top up on his blood supply, with the next step in his training being to use some of his newly acquired powers to defeat the Sabbat attacking in the streets, using his vampiric invisibility to navigate away from the long arm of the Sabbat, and mind-controlling humans to trick them into opening doors for him.
Yeah, okay.
Even if the doors seem to be the most formidable foe of them all.
Why? Why?
But Greg cannot avoid combat forever, having to take on a few of them and try out his new vampiric strength. But at least Greg has his new pal Jack to back him up. Thanks for helping. Finishing off his training by finding out that Greg is amazingly even more shit at shooting than he is at hand-to-hand combat.
Nope. 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 Nope.
Well, you know what never misses? Being able to watch the ad-free and uncensored versions of these long deep dives on the MitchManix Patreon, with all the juicy not safe for YouTube clips left in, while supporting the channel, getting your hands on all kinds of perks, extra videos, and your name in the credits. Head down to the description to find out more. With Greg brought up to speed, Jack bids us farewell, telling Greg to visit the last round bar if he manages to find his feet. Finally, now left to his own devices, Greg finds himself back in his apartment, but with a few new belongings. A laptop provided by LaCroix, along with a note from the man LaCroix has tasked Greg with tracking down, Mercurio, with the note providing a password for his new PC, getting Greg access to the email and the address that we'll need to find Mercurio. Taking a look around the apartment and having an unfortunate encounter with the bathroom door.
Why?
Things seem to be falling into place when it comes to his new mission, even if the voices inside his head just keep getting worse.
Dry the corpse in the oven with peppers and fur.
Venturing out into the streets of Santa Monica, Greg does his best to blend in while heading to the address to meet Mercurio, finding a pool of blood just outside and entering to see it trailing down the hallway. Following this concerning trail, Greg finds Mercurio, bloody and beaten.
Oh, shit, you're a Malkavian, aren't you? Damn, that's the last thing I need.
This man reveals that while attempting to buy some explosives for LaCroix, he was beaten and robbed, leaving him with nothing. Greg, being the upstart fledgling vampire, offers to both get these explosives as well as finding something for Mercurio's pain, displaying empathy for his predicament by calling him a silly dying man. Heading out and into the nearby clinic to find some pain relief, Greg sneaks down into the bowels of the building, meeting a chap that offers to sell Greg some under-the-table blood to consume if he finds himself running low. A chap that incredibly has an aura about him that makes even Greg look like a Nobel Prize physicist in comparison. Grabbing some pills from Mercurio, Greg stumbles upon a woman in distress on his way out.
Please, get a doctor.
Deciding to give her a little drink to perk her up, which works a little too well.
I kissed your wrist. What did you do?
Security alerted, Greg scrambles to get some cover from the guard's rather confusing choice of weaponry.
Sir, stop shooting me with your hand. Sir, please, stop shooting me with your hand.
Slipping away, Greg stares back, blissfully unaware of the chain of events he has just set in motion. Exploring the clinic further, and pocketing a copy of Computers for Grandma to assist him with his hacking skill, when... It seems Greg has overstayed his welcome. Desperately needing somewhere to hide out for a while, Greg sneaks his way through the streets and into a nearby club, quite fittingly named the Asylum, while getting quite the welcome indeed.
Ooh, what do we have here? Another scrumptious young plaything straight out of life and into my club? You smell new, little boy, like fabric softener dew on freshly mowed AstroTurf. Oh, I'm not frightening you, am I, duckling?
If I'm being honest, a little bit. It's here we meet Jeanette, who Greg oddly addresses as the daughter of Janus. Jeanette, surprisingly however, is not put off when noticing Greg's insane ramblings.
Oh my, a Malkavian. This ought to be absolutely delicious. Two minds as crazy as ours, and who knows just what might happen.
Make me wonder why that is. Greg makes plans to return later on, and heads back to Mercurio to provide him with some pain relief and get the last known location of his attackers, getting the location of their beach hut hideout here in Santa Monica. Making his way there while getting to speak with some more of the locals.
And a crab nibble, listen, got crab nibble, all got a crab nibble.
Greg heads up to the beach house before stopping outside to contemplate, overhearing what sounds like Mickey Mouse apparently having quite a hilarious mental breakdown. Making his way inside and getting an eyeful of the even more confusing game of cards being played, Greg confidently wanders up to the gang leader and demands he hands over the explosives. Or at least, that was the intention. But in reality, now with his linguistic affliction, ends up confusing the f*** out of the guy with the whole ordeal devolving into a brawl. Greg gets the upper hand in quite an ironic way, with the gang apparently losing their minds and forgetting how tables work. Flinging the gang around with his newly found strength, Greg snags the explosives and returns to Mercurio.
Why?
He explains that our next task is to destroy a nearby warehouse owned by the Sabbat, a location we can learn about by tracking down a fellow vampire named Bertram Tongue, someone that has unfortunately gone into hiding from a particular lady who happens to own the Asylum Club we visited on the other side of town, and the sister of the seductress Jeanette. Heading over there, we get a front row seat, overhearing their sibling squabbling, along with, of course, Greg's inner voices ruining the whole scene somewhat.
Your city? Last time I looked, it was called Santa Monica, not stuck-up bitch. So vulgar. I can't even look at you sometimes.
Stop
Just
doing that.
You really do paint a flattering portrait of me.
Meeting Therese, she is the antithesis of her sister, prim, proper, and sick of tongue and his subterfuge, along with clearly disgusted by his Nosferatu bloodline.
What reason would I have not to hate that loathsome Nosferatu scoundrel? Bloody Nosferatu. They're so unclean.
Greg and Therese discuss the situation, with Greg once again addressing this sister as the daughter of Janus. Therese proposes an agreement. She will agree to put aside her differences with Tongue, and in return she wants Greg to remove a spirit from a property she's looking into investing in by removing a personal item that once belonged to this spirit over at the Ocean House Hotel. Sounds easy, but oh boy would this be an experience and a half.
Beat your dick.
What?
Grabbing a snack for the road, Greg heads through the sewers, arriving at the grand-looking Ocean House Hotel. Grabbing the front door key from the site office, Greg confidently strides inside, blissfully unaware of the horror he has just wandered into. Exploring the long, abandoned hotel, Greg immediately feels the grip of the spirit, with its smashing light fixtures and flinging vases into his balls. Reading the newspapers strewn around the place, we can see that following the hotel's grand opening, a family went missing, with the search uncovering more and more grotesque findings as it progressed, with these horrific events still echoing through the hotel halls. With even the voices in Greg's head becoming uneasy. Still managing to sift through the hotel, Greg finds himself in the hotel's kitchen. And with all these household items being thrown around the place, I can't help but think that there may be more than one spirit haunting this hotel.
It's raw! It's raw! Where's the lobster? The lamb sauce! Where's the lamb sauce?
Greg is clearly not welcome here, as he is getting too close to uncovering the truth of this haunting. Finding a diary written by a concerned wife, revealing her worries over her husband's obsession with a locket of hers gifted to her by her mother. A locket her husband has convinced himself is actually a gift from her lover, and as the days go by on their stay, he boils up a jealous, murderous rage. Ducking and dodging the spirit's fury, Greg makes it to the upper floors of the hotel, grabbing the locket from the bedside table, and finally putting this murderous presence to rest. Returning to the club, Greg finds no sign of Therese, instead finding Jeanette, who after throwing a small tantrum around us not giving her the locket, asks us to do a favor for her in the meantime, to smash up a local art museum, apparently set up by another kindred, attempting to set up their own power clique here in the city, requesting that we smash up the place and stop the upcoming event.
Oh, and there was something about the paintings. What was it? I can't remember. Oh well, have fun, duckling.
Attempting to enter the museum, we are stopped by a rotund police officer, warning us not to trespass.
I'm gonna have to ask that you vacate the premises immediately, or I'm afraid I'll be forced to radio this in.
Met with yet another hurdle, Greg indulges yet again in his Malkavian abilities, incapacitating the man by beaming into his mind a message about how utterly pathetic his existence is.
Crab nibble this and crab nibble that.
Ruining the paintings inside, Jeanette's forgotten detail reveals itself, in the form of a blood guardian bursting out of quite clearly more than just paintings, slapping about poor Greg until he is able to put him down. And the shocks don't stop there, as after returning, Greg finds an extremely pissed off Therese. It seems Jeanette tricked us into destroying her sister's exhibit, with Therese explaining that if we still want any chance of her pulling back from our contact tongue, we should go to the diner to meet Jeanette and hopefully try and smooth things over between the sisters. Luckily, the diner is only across the street, as Greg strides in, curiously not spotting the quite hard-to-miss Jeanette, instead picking up one of the establishment's phones to uncover yet another deception.
It was a setup. Listen, I know we've had our differences, but you have to trust me. Therese tried to have you killed. I had to lock myself in the bathroom because now she's got a gun and... Please, you have to help me!
Greg, spotting the hitters now searching the bar for him, quickly dismantles them, while providing the diner with some more wall decoration in the process. Marching back to the club, Greg walks in on yet another eyeful, with Jeanette and Therese clearly inhabiting the same body.
This will just make it easier to kill both of you. Help! Save me and I'll help you find Bertram, I swear!
Arguing with each other about each other's actions, while waving a revolver. As crazy as this situation is, it reveals this poor girl's dark past.
I've always covered up your mistakes. I've taken care of you, and this is how you repay me. Taking care of me. You've done nothing but keep me down. Blame me for every mistake.
We find out that her father got far too close to her as a child, causing her to use her dissociative identity disorder to create her own fantasy, one that she could control. With this ironically spiraling out of control one night, leading them to murdering her father, with both personalities blaming each other for the killing. And after meeting and being turned by a Malkavian vampire, it only serves to further cement this poor girl's insanity. As we know by now, all too well. The pair argue, both blaming each other for their troubles, until tussling with the gun a shot rings out, with only Jeanette now remaining.
I killed her. I didn't want her to go. I only wanted her to change. You understand, don't you? Poor Therese. You wanted to find Bertram. He's at the old gas station in an empty oil tank. He'll help you because I'll ask him to. But you must keep your tongue tied tight about what happened this night. Understand?
Now finally able to meet with our contact to progress with destroying the Sabbat warehouse, Greg throws some shapes to cheer himself up a bit. Something worth pointing out is how Greg addressed both Jeanette and Therese, calling them both daughters of Janus, right from their first meeting. Janus being a Roman god depicted by having two faces, suggesting that Greg saw this coming long before it even played out. Interesting indeed. Heading over to the old gas station, Greg meets with Tongue, who, although looking like a pimple demon, is far more concerned with our hero's vampiric bloodline.
Oh shit, a Malkavian. I suppose I'll figure out what the hell you're talking about in a month or so.
Regardless, Tongue grants us access to the Sabbat warehouse, with Greg using his vampiric powers to slip past the security, up to a point, as when entering is discovered, leaving to him having to resort to brute strength, that on occasion is in slightly too much supply. Yet no amount of sheer strength can save him from the crippling evil of the land's doors.
Oh my god. Why?
Somehow freeing himself, Greg plants the explosives and scuttles out of there, getting a visit from an unfamiliar face, who stops Greg to ask him some ominous questions.
I see my reputation for once does not precede me. My name is Beckett. I haven't been following you per se. We've just coincidentally been at the same places at the same time, for different reasons. So sorry if I unnerved you. Tell me, have you by chance seen or felt anything strange since your embrace?
Parting ways, Greg looks to earn a little bit of cash before reporting back to LaCroix, so picks up a request from a local bail bondsman to find a missing bounty hunter of his, that after some snooping around we find in the clutches of a gruesome serial killer, hilariously choosing to defend himself with the arm of one of his victims.
What are you doing here?
Which Greg, of course, cannot resist adding to his own arsenal, giving a whole new meaning to the right to bear arms. Now with a little more cash, Greg heads over to his prepaid cab to take him to meet LaCroix at his downtown office. Jumping in and arriving downtown, Greg is met with a warm welcome.
Leave it out for the sunrise.
We're going to have a lot of fun with this one.
It seems the Sabbat have already caught up with him, after his explosive time spent demolishing one of their warehouses, and it does not look good for our fledgling vampire.
Those of you sitting in the first few rows will get wet.
Staring down his final death, Greg is saved in the nick of time. This man introduces himself as Nines, an unfamiliar face, Greg comes to realize, after spending a bit of time wondering if this man has his own cereal, for some reason. Nines tells Greg to watch himself, and to come to the last round bar tonight, promising to tell him the real story. Arriving in downtown, Greg wastes no time taking a look around, while trying to keep his batshit behavior to a minimum, lasting about 8 seconds, before completely ruining it by getting into an argument with a stop sign.
No, you stop. No, you stop. You have made a powerful enemy today, Sign.
Pulling himself together for a moment, Greg tracks down the truly massive Venture Tower, the location of LaCroix's downtown office, and heads inside, bumping into a bit of an awkward encounter with the police officer he brought to tears in Santa Monica.
You look familiar, Chief. We haven't met before, have we?
Who we find out is named Chunk, Luckily, Greg's mind-altering vampire powers he used on the fellow earlier comes with a side of amnesia, letting him reintroduce himself a little more politely. After being granted access to LaCroix's office, responds with the epic,
"What are you a chunk of? There's a bigger piece?"
Wandering into LaCroix's office, Greg updates him on his achievements.
You've done well, circumstances being what they were. I will admit, not many in your position would have overcome such a trial. But don't misunderstand me. It was no fool's errand. You may yet prove to be a genuine asset.
Proving himself to LaCroix, Greg is given another task: to investigate a ship recently towed into port, and specifically a particular piece of cargo, a sarcophagus. Setting out on his new mission, Greg decides to take up nines on his offer to meet, dropping in on the last round bar, finding a familiar face in Jack, that after laughing at Greg after hearing about his shenanigans in Santa Monica, gives him a strong warning regarding the cargo on the ship he has just been deployed to investigate.
That sarcophagus is bad news. Kindred around the globe have been going batshit since it was discovered.
But Greg is not here to chat the night away with Jack, so heads upstairs to Nines, who Greg manages to piss off in record time, with Nines explaining a little bit more about himself and his group of vampires, the Anox, that he leads, as well as his hatred for LaCroix and his Camarilla, to which Greg responds with comments around lunch meats.
I got their meeting right here.
Ending with the epic,
"Isn't this where your theme music kicks in?" Stereotype.
Despite being a bellend, Greg is given a chance by the group, who ask him to report back in with any interesting details around LaCroix and his sect, the Camarilla's plans. Turning to task, Greg returns to Santa Monica to grab a boat to get him onto the cargo ship, with instructions to not kill anyone and to get as much evidence on this sarcophagus as possible. He must be careful, especially since the ship's guards seem to be a tad jumpy. Sneaking through the ship is made easy. With his newfound vampiric camouflage, Greg spies the ominous sarcophagus to see the container it was traveling in torn apart, blood splattered across the lid, looking like someone may have opened it. With the intel he needs and managing to stay under the radar, Greg heads back to his boat and whizzes back downtown to report in, not before being stopped by another familiar face.
Hey, I know this might seem creepy and all, but please don't blow me off, okay? Someone told me I could find you here. I mean, I've been looking all over for you since that night. Because I just wanted to... I'm in your debt. I want to help you. I owe you my life, and I feel like I need to repay you. I almost forgot. I'm Heather. Heather Poe. I'm not weirding you out or anything, am I?
Weirding him out, woman? I don't think that's possible. I mean, look at him. Seeking us out after gifting her some blood back in Santa Monica, we find out this girl's name, Heather, who profusely begs Greg to take her in and let her stay with him, feeling eternally in his debt, as well as quite addicted to the rush his blood provides. With Greg agreeing and bringing her on as is known by the kindred as a ghoul, a human that is given a taste of vampire blood and is enslaved by the desire for more. With this, Greg escorts her to his new apartment paid for by LaCroix, and promptly leaves, before getting into an argument with a pot plant or something.
Hey!
Oh, for f***'s sake. Returning to LaCroix's office, we see a number of well-dressed individuals making their way out, assumed to be powerful vampires, as it seems even their outfits can't help but quiver in fear. Speaking with LaCroix, he is skeptical about the Ankaran sarcophagus actually being opened, and tasks Greg with another mission: to find a missing primogen, Dr. Alistair Grout, with the primogen being a vampire clan leader, and with Grout heading up the Malkavian clan, just adding to Greg's interest. Before setting off, Greg weighs up his options by revisiting the last round bar, looking to earn some points with the Anox too, by taking on a request from Damsel, investigating a strange disease spreading around the city she believes to be linked with a kindred named the Plague Bearer. For what reason, I have no idea, but someone Greg must learn more about, so heads over to Skyline Apartments in an attempt to make contact with the ghoul, known to know more about this Plague Bearer.
Thank you for your service.
With this fellow apparently knowing this Plague Bearer a little too well, finding him dead on the floor on arrival, but with his answering machine message blinking.
Hi, Paul. It's Hannah. Just calling to
see how you are. I hope I didn't give you what I've got. I feel like crap. Actually, I need to ask you a favor. Could you pick me up some cold medicine at the store? I hate to bother you, but I can't seem to get out of bed. The code on my door is 1203.
Heading upstairs to the also very sick neighbor, Greg, after a little mind manipulation, is able to find out that this woman was recently hired by another woman named Jezebel Locke, staying over at the Empire Hotel, with it being her she blames on giving her this disease, a disease she unfortunately succumbs to right then and there.
I hope so. I really do.
Greg making sure this poor woman receives a proper burial. Swiftly heads out to try and get a face-to-face with Jezebel Locke over at the Empire Hotel, with once arriving at Greg noticing that it's clearly more upmarket than his, with him getting a little distracted for a moment, just taking in this grand establishment.
Where's the land source?
Turning back to task, Greg squeezes the hotel staff for this woman's room number.
I see. Well, in that case, perhaps I can make an exception.
And bursts in, finding her a little bit too happy to see him.
Oh, yeah. Who do we have here? Are you a believer, little morsel?
Jezebel continues to cozy up to Greg in an attempt to seduce him, truly not knowing who she's dealing with.
Oh, come on now. Don't deny yourself the pleasure of Jezebel's talents. Just a few more steps and we can be enveloped by the sweet darkness, become slaves to the desires of our wasted flesh.
But getting a sharp indication with Greg replying with one of the silliest responses yet.
I forgot to bring Jim's little hat.
Oh, you cannot escape me, little morsel.
A line that even caught me off guard, which is saying something indeed. Not able to seduce him, a battle ensues between the two, with Greg putting a stop to the disease spreader, laying down her final death and waving her goodbye. With a little bit more cash in pocket, Greg looks to pick up some more gear to help him with his endeavors, and with this being the dead of night in downtown, means hitting up a local named Larry, who is quite the character indeed.
Player, what's the score? How they hang? Good evening and all that commotion. Welcome to Fat Larry's Trucker Mac, the only store for all your needs after 10 o'clock. I am the proprietor and salesman of the month several years in a row. The ladies call me, oh God, but you can call me Fat Larry with a F-A-T, cause I know I got a weight problem, I just don't give a f***.
Purchasing some new threads to finally cover up Greg's nips, he heads home to check up on his ghoul Heather, revealing to her his true identity as a vampire. A revelation she seems completely fine with.
You've pulled the shades off my mind's window. I can see now. There's a whole world out there. It's mind-blowing.
With Greg wondering if she will be able to handle his insanity, but only for a few moments, before something about her sets his mind at ease. With some new gear and his ghouls settled, Greg turns his attention back to the task set by LaCroix, making his way out of town to Alistair Grout's mansion. Arriving, he strangely finds Nines leaving the property.
You should get out of here. This place is bad news. Pardon me.
Confused, he cannot think on this too long. As stepping inside Grout's mansion, it's clear that he has far more on his plate than he imagined. Grout's home is filled with hysterical horrors, crying and muttering to themselves, and surprisingly loud. Cutting his way through them and getting to hear some of Grout's researched recordings around his experiments. As he delves deeper into the mansion, things just seem to be getting stranger and stranger by the second. Somehow navigating this mind-bending mansion, Greg finds Grout, who is a pile of ash, with the question of who could have destroyed him giving way immediately to another strange encounter with a vampire hunter named Buck.
Grout is dead? Pity it could not be by my hand. No matter. Soon your self-made kings and false prophets and all who bear the mark of the beast will be washed from the earth for the coming of the Lord.
Bellowing at us about his plans to take down LaCroix and all that serve him.
Serve as a promise to all who serve the archfiend LaCroix. I'm coming for you, LaCroix. By the power of the Lord, I will cleanse your black soul! I'll be back!
Now with the mansion ablaze, Greg, fighting for his life, finds a window and leaps to safety, returning to Venture Towers.
Something burning? Ooh, smells like someone burnt the burgers.
Explaining to LaCroix both Grout's fate as well as the strange presence of Nines, he talks on the gravity of these developments.
Under most circumstances, I would call a blood hunt on the murderer immediately. However, the anarchs of this city may interpret such an action to be a declaration of war. I do not want a war with them. This decision will take some time. I need to confer with the Primogen on this. In the meantime, I've come to a decision on the Ankaran sarcophagus, and I believe that for the safety of the inhabitants of this city, we need to place the sarcophagus under Camarilla protection until its contents can be confirmed.
Revisiting the mystery of the Ankaran sarcophagus, LaCroix tasks us with bringing it to him from its new location in the Museum of Natural History. Getting a ride to the museum once again under orders to keep casualties to a minimum, Greg glides through the halls in search of any clues that could point him in the direction of the sarcophagus amongst the other exhibits.
And people wonder why my hair's falling out.
Stealthily stealing some keys and making it to the secure parts of the museum, we fail to find the sarcophagus, only finding another meeting with Beckett, who is just as confused as to why someone would have stolen it. Confusion not exactly helped by Greg's reply, choosing to go with,
"A supervillain must have stolen it. To the baddie signal."
Beckett laughs off the theories that some other vampires have come up with, that it is a sign of the end of days containing a powerful third-generation vampire. Regardless, Greg returns to LaCroix, who is not exactly pleased.
Stolen? How? Who would... Oh, Gary. Gary, you treasonous maggot. I should have anticipated your treachery, sewer rat.
LaCroix suspects a Nosferatu, named Gary, of being involved in the sarcophagus's theft.
Find Gary and get him to talk. That sarcophagus could be used against us. Do not come back until you have it.
Setting Greg loose to track him down in Hollywood, while confirming the blood hunt for Nines is now on, after we reported seeing him leaving the now deceased Grout's mansion. Off on yet another wild ride, Greg once again looks to deepen his pockets in preparation, heading into the confession bar to inquire about any quick jobs he can do to earn some cash. Speaking to the owner and offering to resolve her issue with some gangsters pressing her for money that she has just spied down the street. Ew. Heading straight over, Greg, now getting better at his mind-bending Malkavian abilities, begins the conversation, telling this grizzly bear that he will not be getting any salmon from the club's owner, and to get back in his cave.
No money?
Sensing trouble, Greg switches things up, informing the grizzly bear that there is indeed some salmon for him. Walking and talking salmon that look just like his buddies.
Salmon. You must eat salmon.
Okay, Greg, I have to admit, that was uncharacteristically smooth. Letting the bar owner know and grabbing some cash as a reward, Greg then heads over to the downtown abandoned hospital, as after all, there may be some blood packs still left lurking within.
What the f*** was that?
Hearing some concerning sounds in this apparently abandoned hospital, we bump into a fellow scared out of his mind.
Help me! Help me! It's got them. It's coming for me now. It's coming for me!
A reporter who has definitely got out of his depth, shouting about something stalking him. Seeing nothing in sight, Greg chooses to be a bit of a troll. Just adding to the man's terror, leading him to scuttle away in a frankly ridiculous fashion. Working his way through the cluttered space, Greg gets a peek at one of the still running monitors to see whatever is haunting this place dragging off its latest victim. With the sounds of terror getting louder and louder the closer we get. Greg eventually finds his way to the hospital's morgue and gets a face-to-face with the one responsible for all the excitement.
Real terror is not the sight of death. It is the fear of death. What is the fear of death? Terror of the unknown.
Here we find Pisha, a vampire of the Nagaraja bloodline, one that is feared by all other vampire bloodlines. And looking at her, for good reason. She asks us to return Captain Flaily-Pants to her, as this bloodline not only needs blood to survive, but also to consume their prey entirely. Greg, not knowing whether to be terrified or turned on, agrees and tracks down the man cowering in his apartment, telling him that this was all just a prank played on him by his crew, leading to him returning in a fit of rage, right into the blood-soaked arms of our new Nagaraja friend. With Greg returning to her after a while to get her thanks. Thanks that we also have to give to Greg for holding on to his twisted mind so far. With some cash and a new powerful friend obtained, Greg jumps back into his cab and heads to Hollywood to begin this search for this Nosferatu, Gary, who LaCroix believes will know more about who has stolen the Ankaran sarcophagus. Hollywood is a sight to behold, with all manner of clubs and restaurants littering its streets. Our first stop is to meet with Isaac Abrams, a high roller in Hollywood that aligns with Nines and his Anarch group.
Neonate, Isaac Abrams. I've been expecting you. Seems the wooden soldiers of the Camarilla shuffle in a little too often these nights. That baby-faced two-bit Prince LaCroix got something to say to me?
Isaac, for helping us, wants something in return first, of course, to pick up a package for him he recently purchased. A movie that ominously the seller is quite shady about delivering, asking us to visit the Ground Zero Internet Cafe to pull up an email that will be detailing the seller's drop-off point. Remember when you had to go to a place to get an email? Far out. Well, the Internet Cafe is littered with all manner of early 2000s nostalgia. With some classic decor, and a patron that definitely shouldn't have eaten that burrito. Pulling up the email with the meeting location using the credentials given by Isaac, it's up to the pickup to grab what I'm sure is quite the spicy video.
Oh my god, it's not just me! The door's got another victim!
Going to the meeting location, the seller is all too keen to hand over the tape.
Oh, you have no idea. It's disgusting. That girl, the things that are happening to her. It just ain't right, man. It just ain't right. No. Something's wrong. Something's after me.
Handing it over, the man runs in terror, only making it around the corner before his suspicions on being followed are violently confirmed.
What the? Oh, Christ!
Returning to Isaac.
Don't have it, do you? I didn't doubt you'd find this. Don't have it, do you?
And with that, the pair throw in the tape to give it a watch, and we get to witness a recording of a woman being chased by a number of disturbing creatures, either that or anthropomorphic boglins, running her down and devouring her in a house of nightmares. Shocking indeed. Isaac reveals the reason for him wanting this tape, as the Nosferatu went into hiding shortly after its discovery, meaning that not only is this tape real, but it could also be to do with their disappearance. Alas, however, it turns out that this is only half of the recording, with Isaac stressing the need to see it in its entirety, so tasks Greg with heading out once more to one of the local adult stores to see if he can find any leads on where he might be able to get his hands on a complete copy, arriving and fighting every urge to pick up this month's edition of Chin magazine. Greg follows the signs downstairs and breaks into the office to hack into the computer to search for leads, which he finds, coming across an email with instructions around using a payphone down the street and a secret code to get in contact with a particularly shady dealer, with of course, given where he is, Greg not being able to resist taking a peek at this place's more intimate files and folders.
4 none, Jeremy. 4? That's insane.
The mysterious voice on the payphone sends Greg to a hotel room that could clearly tell some stories, with him finding a key belonging to the internet cafe on the floor amongst the destruction, taking him once again to Ground Zero. Greg uses the key to gain access to the upper floor, while losing another patch of his hair in the process. Heading upstairs, it's clear this space is used for the creation of all manner of spicy home videos. Okay, I don't want to know. But after delving further, also houses some much more insidious activities, finding a terrified man cowering in the corner, a member of the gang distributing this tape.
Yeah, I know, but we didn't make that shit. I mean, one of the guys stole it, found it in the creepy house in the hills. We just copied it and put our names on it. Worse than anything we ever did. Worst thing I ever saw.
Fighting back the Hellspawn and making a quick escape, Greg heads back to Isaac, now with a copy of the full tape in his possession, with this full version allowing them to pin down where this tape was recorded, just out of town, in King's Way. Greg wastes no time sneaking in and smashing his way through the horrors within, all the way to the intense evil behind such unspeakable horror.
Hello, young K-Knight. I see your face is not so lifeless. Your nerves not so deadened that you cannot express shock. Tell me, child, is my appearance that frightening? Or is it my knowledge of you that is so unnerving?
This is Andre, Archbishop of the Sabbat, an extraordinarily powerful vampire that has been capturing humans here to twist and mold them into walking abominations, boasting about his ungodly creations. Andre warns Greg of LaCroix and his Camarilla.
And I fear not his wrath nor his judgment. Can you say the same, Camarilla Pon?
Dark and intimidating, Andre talks of the dark times approaching, while Greg's inner thoughts once again ruin the whole mood.
Revulsion is instinctual, and instinct is a power.
Enough with the cranberry sauce!
Greg, of course, cannot allow this creature to continue its despicable work, so a fight breaks out, with Greg having to pull out all the stops until the Archbishop is forced to retreat. Noticing a pipe down into the city's sewer network, Greg wanders in hope of tracing the Nosferatu. Navigating this seemingly endless sewer network, Greg is in luck, spying a number of household items and signs, showing him that he is now stepping into the home of the Nosferatu, with him instantly searching for Gary, and with Gary finding him first.
Careful what you wish for. You just might get it. Behind you, boss. Boo!
Speaking with him, he does have some information on the Ankaran sarcophagus, but of course wants something in return, with even Greg getting sick and tired of jumping through so many hoops.
Why are the words never what I want to hear? Welcome to Undeath, boss. Ain't it a hoot?
For this information, Gary wants us to track down a missing agent of his in Chinatown.
The Golden Temple in Chinatown. It's a piss-poor copy of a real place. Looks like it'd be more at home in a theme park. That I saw is where you'll find the leader of the L.A. Kuei Jin. They call her Ming Zhao. Sounds dangerous? No, talk to Zhao. Ask her where my boy is and get him back. Once he's safe, I'll tell you everything you need to know about the sarcophagus.
With his next destination of Chinatown confirmed, Greg once again heads out to try and line his pockets a little more, picking up a task from LaCroix to destroy the reputation of a Hollywood restaurant so LaCroix could buy it, by meddling in the mind of a food critic to convince him that he is eating maggots.
This place will pay for this. As sure as my name is Tommy Flayton, they'll never serve food in this town again.
With the restaurant besmirched and a little bit more money, Greg then wanders into one of the gentlemen's clubs to seek out some more quick work, but is stopped in his tracks when the owner of the joint gets stuck on a wall, breaking everything and outraging Greg so much that he throws his own bug in there too, by attempting to go back in time.
I can't imagine you'd get much of a rise out of Vesuvius, being what you are.
Giving up on the bar, Greg once again heads back to his ride, catching a cab to the bright lights and fried rice of Chinatown, taking a look around and finding out that amazingly, things are still just getting even more weird.
Gordon? He's after the cranberry sauce.
Jumping right into the nearest shop, finally getting a chance to get some new threads, suitable for the powerful, formidable vampire he is becoming. You know, I don't know what I expected. Dude over here looking like the twat in the hat. Looking like an absolute tit, Greg meets with the Kuei Jin vampire leader, Ming Zhao.
Welcome, kindred. And thank you for respecting our traditions by announcing your presence in our domain. I am Ming Zhao, High Priestess to the people of Chinatown. Can I get you anything?
Zhao respectfully greets Greg, but as she talks on the task at hand, it's obvious that there is a sinister atmosphere lingering in the air.
Let me just say that I do not encourage you to seek the Ankaran sarcophagus.
Inquiring, Zhao does not know where Gary's Nosferatu agent may be, but suggests we speak with Wang Ho, the owner of the Red Dragon restaurant nearby, who may have some answers. Heading straight there, Greg informs the lady at the door that he is sent by the Thing in the Golden Temple, leading to her opening up a secret door with an elevator going up, which excites Greg massively. Going up, Greg finds Hong, who is distraught about his daughter. At least, that's what we managed to hear.
Again, you are correct.
Cranberry sauce.
She was kidnapped by the Tong.
This has nothing to do with cranberry sauce!
Managing to piece together at least some of what this man is saying, we find out that his daughter is missing, kidnapped by one of the gangs of Chinatown. Receiving a call, Hong finds out where the gang are keeping his daughter, a massage parlor owned by the gang nearby. And looking to get on his good side, Greg offers to retrieve her, an offer Hong is overjoyed to accept. Why Hong trusts a man looking like Dr. Zeus moonlighting as a pimp to go anywhere near children is another thing entirely. Slicing his way through the massage parlor, Greg finds and extracts the daughter, returning her to her father. Eternally grateful, Hong explains more around this gang, the Tongs, who are causing more and more chaos in Chinatown. More importantly, he informs Greg that a member of the Tong he has ties to may know more about where to find Gary's Nosferatu agent. Following the leads from both Hong and his informant, Greg finds himself fighting all the way to the top of a criminal organization, landing him in front of its leader, one calling himself the Mandarin.
You are searching for one of your kind, I understand. I have him at my facility. Come to the Fu Syndicate building. We will discuss terms of release.
This man knows of Greg's vampiric origins and lures him into his organization's headquarters, after confirming the Nosferatu that he seeks has already been imprisoned there. Stepping inside, Greg sees that he has wandered into a trap, one where the Mandarin puts him through a series of sick tests to study his vampiric abilities. However, underestimating our mink-clad Malkavian, Greg escapes, quite ironically doing away with his vampiric powers and blasting him into orbit with a shotgun. Freeing Gary's agent, his side of the bargain has been fulfilled. Getting a phone call from Gary with the crucial information on the Ankaran sarcophagus Greg seeks, explaining that all will be revealed by paying a visit to the mansion home of the Giovanni, an independent vampire clan, out in the outskirts of the city, who just so happen to be having a posh get-together at this mansion tonight, a lead that will be challenging to infiltrate, but one Greg must follow regardless. Well, it could be worse. At least he's not dressed like a bellend. Pulling up to the mansion, the task of how to get inside is first on the agenda, with Greg spying a couple nearby that are made short work after a little mind-bending to encourage them to head home and hand him their invitations. Striding into the mansion, Greg first comes across Mira Giovanni, who amazingly does not fall for Greg's disturbing attempts to seduce her into giving up information.
Oh, please. I've had men hitting on me since I was 12.
I'm sorry, one more time?
I've had men hitting on me since I was 12.
Oh God, I don't think I'm qualified to deal with this. Genuinely disturbed and failing, Greg switches things up and attempts to seduce another of the Giovanni ladies, Nadia, this time being much more successful, with her leading them away to find somewhere more private.
Okay? Oh, God. I seriously hope that sound is your shoes.
Now somewhere alone, Greg subdues the woman with quite the love bite and hits the switch granting access to the lower levels of the mansion, cutting down the wandering undead. And after a long while searching, Greg finds a couple of foes that pose him much more of a challenge in his mission to find the sarcophagus.
There is an alliance between your leader LaCroix and Mistress Ming Zhao. You violate the agreement.
In a fight to the death with two of the Kwai-Gen's most elite, Greg channels his power, crushing the brothers and finally getting him access to the Ankaran sarcophagus.
My Wunderkind returns.
With the Ankaran sarcophagus finally in their possession, LaCroix is beside himself with anticipation and attempts to open it immediately, despite Greg's attempt to warn him by fashioning his fur coat into a tube top.
An extraordinary piece, but nothing earth-shattering.
I see. Then there is no good reason why we shouldn't open it. Won't budge. Beckett, do you see any mechanism for the lid?
I haven't as yet had a chance to pore over it with my fine-tooth comb. I think I have one in my bag.
Why won't it open, Beckett? And you, I thought you said it looked as if it had been opened on the Dane. I want it open!
LaCroix demands we work with Beckett to figure out how to unlock it. Beckett luckily has a strong lead for us to follow. A professor of archaeology that unfortunately has recently been captured by the vampire hunter we encountered earlier in Grout's mansion. Yes, that's right. He's back. Reaching the monastery and smashing his way down into the caves underneath, Greg inevitably comes face to face with the vampire hunter Buck for a chance to show this fool what real disturbingly dressed vampiric might looks like, securing the professor and returning to LaCroix. It looks like quite the scrap has already taken place, with bodies and blood littering the reception. The Sabbat have stepped up their efforts to snatch the sarcophagus.
With whom do they think they're dealing? Attack me in my own building! They're desperate. They've shown their weakness. A last-ditch attempt to steal the prize.
Having enough of the Sabbat's interference, LaCroix orders Greg to strike directly at their home at the Hallowbrook Hotel, stopping off first at the last round to update them. We head to the hotel and battle through the legion of Sabbat, leading right to an all-familiar, scaly face.
The blood of all the pawns. It all must be purified.
Finally getting a chance to cut down Andre once and for all, while leaving Greg is stopped by Ming Zhao.
Your foes all lie vanquished, kindred. I come to help.
Who attempts to sweet-talk Greg into aligning with the Kuai Jin, while also revealing quite the shocking revelation.
LaCroix saw an opportunity to rid himself of two problems, a hardened rebel leader and a problematic primogen in one fell stroke. And as you can see, I was integral to his plan.
Good lord. Ming tells us that she and LaCroix plotted together to frame Nines, and warns of LaCroix's inevitable betrayal as we carry this back to the office, to luckily find that Chunk managed to survive the Sabbat's attack after eating some dodgy food and not being able to work that day, letting us up to see LaCroix despite not having an appointment, with Greg providing yet another of his classic responses.
He wasn't expecting you, but it should be alright.
Nobody expects the Malkavian Inquisition.
LaCroix denies working with the Kuai Jin and lying to Greg, claiming that it is the Kuai Jin who are the untrustworthy ones, and sends Greg to the last round to propose an alliance with the Anarchs for them both to team up against the Kuai Jin. Speaking with the Anarchs, Nines is unfortunately not there, instead hiding out in Griffith's Park, as after all, as up until now he has had a blood hunt called on him for his demise. Heading out, and with all this betrayal and violence, Greg will need to keep a low profile and mind-focused to come out of this in one piece.
I am the master vampire.
Wait! I wasn't doing anything. The sign made me do it.
About the sarcophagus?
Getting caught whizzing around like a lunatic, Beckett talks on his concern about opening the box, as Greg heads up to the cable car to Griffith Park, finding Nines hiding out nearby. Greg explains that LaCroix has asked the Anarchs to team up with him against the Kuai Jin, but the pair do not have long to discuss, with the sky glowing with the light of a nearby fire, a sight that holds much more danger than the flames. Someone has started the fire to draw out the werewolves who live out here in the park, and with the tram leaving, Greg will have to wait for another to arrive, while getting a face full of furry fury.
The goat's mink, I promise!
Greg, while having a rare stroke of genius, lures the towering beast into the park observatory and crushes it in its huge metal doors. Things are simply getting out of control. Heading back to the car and at last getting some rest, Greg is awoken by Jack, who has some disturbing news.
LaCroix put out the word. He says you're in league with the Kuai Jin, Ming Zhao's puppet, that you're the one who set up Nines for her. See, he's figured it all out, and now your death is a big bullet point in his new Unity campaign. There's a blood hunt on you.
As we had feared, LaCroix has turned on Greg, after Greg found out about LaCroix and the Kuai Jin working together, ordering any vampire that can hold a severed arm to destroy Greg on sight, a development that leads Greg having to battle his way through the streets just to get his taxi to safety.
You know, when it comes to the whole trying not to give away the vampire thing, you're not exactly subtle. Especially you.
Getting to breathe for a second walking up to the Anarch's new hideout, Greg thinks on who he can really trust. In this world filled with backstabbing and blood, can he really trust anyone? And what exactly could be in this Ankaran sarcophagus? Heading inside and speaking to Nines, who is clearly suffering from his encounter with the werewolf, he presses the urgency of crippling both the Kwai Jin as well as LaCroix and his Camarilla, starting with the Kwai Jin, by attacking their base and shutting down Ming Zhao. But with Nines being so battered and bruised, there is only one who can pull this off. Carving a path through the Kwai Jin temple, Greg puts all he has learnt to the test, flinging the master martial artists around the place, all the way to Ming herself.
You've become a grave disappointment, Kindred. This was not meant to be your destination, but your path will end here.
Who clearly won't be such a pushover. After an epic battle and frankly an embarrassing amount of attempts, Greg finally overcomes the tentacle-flailing terror, shutting down the leader of the Kwai Jin, leaving just one mess to clear up. Mind-controlling Chunk to make him cower off in fear instead of getting physical, which I have to think was mostly unnecessary. Greg blasts his way up the Venture Tower in search of LaCroix, battling back the ever-increasingly formidable forces under his employ, leading to the strongest of them all, his right-hand man, and the murderer of poor Greg's sire, the Sheriff. Greg's most challenging battle begins, first tussling with the hulking vampire, and then cunningly utilizing the building's spotlights to drag down his giant bat form, to blast him into oblivion, leaving nothing but the final encounter with the man himself.
You betrayed me. I gave you guidance, responsibility, opportunity, power. And now, you enter my building, cripple my organization, kill my most loyal associates. You, Judas, you devil. You think you've beaten me? Huh. I've still got my sarcophagus. Give me the key.
Hearing the last of LaCroix's demands, Greg does what he should have done all along.
It can't end like this. Don't you see the Kwai Jin will kill us all? I can't lose. I will open the sarcophagus. I'll build an empire.
For you, my prince, you deserve this more than anyone. Bye-bye.
You fool! You had it in your grasp! You had Los Angeles in your hands, and you threw it all away! That's why you're not a leader, why you'll never be anything but an errand boy. I'll build a new world order. Tell your anarchs, their days are numbered. Now, my sacrifice. Who are you?
Now ain't that a beautiful thing? Hey, messer up, buddy, I'm talking to you. You don't really talk much, do you? Hey, it happened just like you said. They never even knew what hit them. Threw that sarcophagus out there and they just tore each other up trying to get to it. And the kid, worked out all right, huh?
Remember, wherever we go, it is the blood of Cain which makes our fate. Farewell, vampire.
And that was Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, a game that by all accounts should have been simply a small footnote in the incredibly stacked year of release, all the more due to it being riddled with bugs in its unfinished state. But after diving into its world and experiencing just one of its many variations of its story, it's clear to see how this legendary RPG just refused to go quietly into the night. Absolutely unforgettable characters. A roller coaster of fights 1 minute and utter insanity the next. Troika Games managed to craft an RPG that, despite its shortcomings, showcases how to deliver the key components that make role-playing games so enjoyable, genuinely not knowing what might be around the corner, and putting intrigue, enjoyment, and charm at the forefront of every moment, delivered by incredibly consistent top-tier voice acting, and a soundtrack that captures its atmosphere perfectly. With the game even over 20 years later being an absolute joy to experience, thanked also in part by the incredible community that have released a whole slew of fan patches to smooth over rough areas and even add new content into the game. But enough from me, what do you think? As always, I'm keen to get your thoughts down in the comments about this one or any other bonkers or classic games you would like to see coming up on the channel. And if it's more deep dives you are after, I'm sure you'll love the whole playlist of them coming up in just a few moments. A huge thank you to my patrons as always. And if you're interested in getting ad-free, uncut versions of these videos with all the not safe for YouTube juicy bits left in, along with a host of other perks and extra videos, head over to the channel Patreon page linked in the description. Please like the video if it was to your liking, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for free so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks again, and I'll catch you in the next one.